Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a hot minute since I've made a video, so this is probably going to be a bit more cash than my previous ones. But in today's video, I want to talk about an experience I had recently taking the TCF French exam. Essentially, I took this exam to evaluate my French level so that I can ask for French nationality, because at the moment you need at least a B1 level in all categories, so like written, speaking, writing, everything, to be able to ask for French nationality. I'm going to talk about my experience, what is the TCF test, and how does that differ from other exams like the DELF, advice and tips that I have, things that I would have liked to have known before starting the exam, and I'll also give you all of the questions that I had during the exam that I can remember, and I can remember most of them. I'm going to add a bunch of resources as well. So what is the TCF? So basically the TCF is a French exam that you can take that gives you a basic understanding of where your French level is at, and the results are pretty quick. So it only takes about 3 weeks to get your results back versus, let's say, the DELF, which can take months. They test you on 4 categories, so your written expression, your oral expression, your oral understanding, and your written understanding. And I'll go over it in more detail exactly how that works and how it's broken down. I actually took specifically the TCF IRN, which is specifically for nationality, but honestly they're all pretty similar. I know there's one for Canadians specifically. One important thing to know about the TCF is that it only lasts 2 years. It's not like a diploma like the DELF, and that is why people usually take this test, so that they can get certification, so that they can either apply for nationality, apply for a certain type of visa, apply for studies. So you do need to apply well in advance, like more than a month in advance. Another reason why I wanted to take the TCF is because anyone can take the TCF of any level, and they just give you your score at the end, whereas for the DELF and other diplomas like that, you actually pick which level you want to be graded at. I don't love the idea, because let's say you want to see if you have a B2, well, you either pass or fail. Before I took the exam, I was really curious what was the easiest, the DELF or the TCF, and I had mixed opinions. But when I did talk to a French teacher at the Alliance Française, she did tell me that she thinks the TCF is easier. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments or DM me on Instagram and I'll get back to you. Okay, talking about my experience. So I took the test with Alliance Française, which is a very well-known French school that also does exam, and they also offered a kind of exam prep on the Monday before the exam. Obviously this is extra, you have to pay for it. Honestly, the content of the actual exam preparation you could probably just do at home, and I'll give you the websites and all of the links, but it was reassuring to be there in the group with other people also taking the test, being able to ask as many questions as you wanted. I felt a lot better after taking the exam prep. If you're a bit nervous, if this is the first French exam you've ever taken, then I would suggest paying that bit extra to do the exam prep if they offer that. Okay, next I'm going to talk about the exact process. I personally had the spoken part before the rest of the exam, which will all be on paper. Or actually, I have heard that you could do a TCF exam on the computer as well, but for me, it was on paper. For the oral expression, there's basically 3 parts within it. The first one is you introduce yourself, and they actually time how long you talk for, and you have to talk for about 2 to 3 minutes. Biggest piece of advice is just talk a lot, because during my exam French prep, there was a lot of people who they didn't talk enough, and they were just hi, I'm Bonnie from Australia. This is probably the easiest part, because you could basically prepare a whole speech before you even go into the exam. I'll put up basically a list of things that you could talk about: your age, where you're from, what you do for work, do you have siblings, what's your family like, why'd you come to France. For the second part, it's basically going to be a scenario situation. The examiner, basically, they have a list of 5 options, 5 scenarios that they can pick, and these smart scenarios are going to generally be you're looking to buy an apartment, and they're the person who owns the apartment, the real estate agent, sorry. You're at the bank, you're asking to open an account, or you're at the grocery store and you're looking for a certain product. It's basically supposed to be a real life scenario that could happen, to essentially prove that you're able to communicate and that you can function in French society. Again, I'll put a list of scenarios that could happen. My scenario that I had was that I was at a store where they sell travel bags, and I had to basically ask about suitcases and what I wanted to buy. It is kind of hard to talk for that long and just make up stuff in your head, but I asked questions I want to buy 2 suitcases and 1 backpack, I want this color, I want this size. I even told her that I fly a lot with Ryanair, so my backpack has to be certain dimensions. I also asked her if I could have a reduction if I bought 3 suitcases. Could I get some kind of reduction? It is most likely going to be a scenario where you're purchasing something of someone. So don't be afraid to ask questions, but make sure that you're the one doing most of the talking and you're not just waiting for the examiner to talk. Obviously they want you to talk more than them. So the third part of this is basically you're supposed to argue your like opinion on something. In the exam practice exams questions, I was expecting something like talking about the environment, talking about politics. I was like prepared to talk about something really in depth, but literally my question during this part is, what's your favorite cuisine and why? Yeah, I just talked for 3 minutes about how much I love Chinese food and why. I almost wanted like a more complicated question so that I could really get into it. By the way, I forgot to mention earlier, but all of these this whole talking part is recorded, and they actually send the recording off to another location in Paris and they regrade it. I basically just talked about, like how in Australia we have a lot of really good Asian food, Chinese food, because we have a lot of Chinese students that come over, and how I grew up, cooking Asian food with my dad. Also, by the way, for all of this, you can just make stuff up. It doesn't have to be honest. Or like I was talking to another Australian woman who was taking the exam. She couldn't think of things to come up with, right, for some of the questions she was asked. So she literally made up stuff. Like she made up that she had like a kid and this and that. Yeah, they don't verify any of this. So I did see on another YouTube video that they can ask things like for you to tell them your phone number or your email address, but I didn't have any of that. I was actually surprised at how easy this part was, to be honest. Okay, and now on to the next part. I have a really good resource, and this is essentially exactly what the exam is going to be like. If you're worried about, listening to audio, like you struggle with this is like literally the best resource. You don't need to spend a bunch of money. There was 20 to 25 questions for the two multiple choice sections, so 25. So the first thing that we did was we listened to the audio section. Essentially, you're going to be in a room with the other students, piece of paper with multiple choice. You're going to hear an audio once, so make sure you're listening. It starts off super easy, like ridiculously easy, and then towards the end it gets more complicated. They also have audio where you can't hear very well, like it's muffled. You can have audio with different French accents. This was the part I was the least worried about because I listen to French every single day. There was one question that I literally didn't hear because the guy behind me was making noise. So I just had to like make an educated guess. The next part is multiple choice again, but for written. So like you read a text, put some examples up, which you can also find on the website TV5 Monde. I struggled with this part a little bit because they had kind of trick questions, and also everything's on a time limit. At the beginning you can try to go a bit faster because the questions are super easy, but towards the end the text gets really long and complicated, and yeah, they choose texts that are going to trick you. Basically just kind of go with your first gut instinct as well. As soon as you start overthinking the text, I think that's when they get ya. Okay, and the final part is written expression. For this part, you're essentially going to have 3 parts where you have to write a certain limit. Try to not go over it, and definitely don't go under, because if you don't have enough words, then they literally will just give you a 0, and they actually make you count the words and write down exactly how many words. And this is basically your opportunity to kind of prove your French level. I made an effort to like kind of memorize some complicated verb usage that I knew I would want to use, like j'aurais dû faire quelque chose. Regardless of what the question is, use some more complicated tenses. The first question was quite basic. So your friend sends you an email asking you for advice on where they should travel to, essentially, and you write an email back. I think it was between 40 and 60 words, which goes super quick. And funnily enough, the examiner before this part told us that spelling didn't matter that much, and I was like, what? Well, they basically explained that the most important thing is that you're understood, in what you're trying to get across is coming across. The second part was someone was sending you another email, same kind of vibe, but a bit more complicated. And then for the third part, I sent you a letter asking you how your music lessons went. It's again like a kind of scenario. So I just put down, yeah, I love the music lessons that I did. It's kind of expensive, but you should definitely come. I should have practiced more before I went. It's a bit complicated. You kind of can just, come up with whatever you want. And for me, even though there is technically a time limit for these exams, I feel like the examiner did let us go over a little bit. She wasn't like super strict, honestly. There's this other website where you can literally get exam questions for the written sections if you want to practice. Those are the 4 parts of the exam. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them and I'll get back to you if you want more details. Other bits of advice is don't show up late. There was this chick who literally like rocked up late, and the teacher got mad. Between the spoken part in the beginning and the actual tests in the exam room, I had like 3 hours to spend. So if you're coming from far, like bring something to do, or you could even like go get lunch. That's what I did in between. It's not back to back basically, because they have to test everyone's spoken one at a time, and then the exam is with everyone together. So when I do get my results, I will make a follow-up video and we can talk about my results. I'm thinking of doing a few more videos about exam preparation as well as applying for nationality. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. Leave me a like and any comments down below. That's all. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.